One of the things that I try to do here in our 3 minutes with Jesus is I try to take some biblical passages that maybe you've heard many times and try to show how they fit within a particular context, which many times gives us a different meaning. And understanding what the Word of God says in its context is really important, because then and only then can we properly apply it. I suspect if you've been in church long enough, you've heard Psalm 37:4 quoted that says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." What does that mean? I'm sure you've probably heard that it means if you love God and you commit to God, that all of a sudden your things in your heart start to become the things of His heart, and then He will give you those things. That may or may not be true, but that is definitely not what David is talking about in Psalm 37. In Psalm 37, verse 1, we're told, "Fret not because of evildoers, and don't be envious of wrongdoers." That is a perennial issue and a perennial problem that many of us who follow God have, is looking around the world and seeing evildoers prosper, seeing injustice happen, and wondering, why doesn't something happen? That word fret means to burn on the inside. He says, don't do that. He says, because God's got a plan. He says, they're going to fade like the grass in verse 2. And they're going to wither like the green herb. In other words, God will eventually bring His justice. And He says in verse 3, well, just trust God and do good. Don't get caught up in looking around at all of the other things. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. And if you continue to read, you will see that He says in verse 6 that He will bring forth your righteousness like the light. The point here in the psalm is that when we look around the world and we see injustice and we see evildoers prospering, and it begs the question, why is God allowing this to happen? David says, if you and me will commit our ways to God, if we will trust Him, we will eventually see Him do the things that we want deep within our hearts, which is to bring justice and to bring righteousness. But it will be in His time, not in ours, and we're to trust Him by faith. Take a moment today and just really take a second to really think about who God is and to appreciate the fact that one day He will bring all things to right. Put your trust there, not in what you see.